If you grew up with a narcissistic mother, you know this feeling, the sinking belief that maybe the problem was always you. You tried to be good, quiet, easy, perfect, and somehow it was still never enough. Because in your home, something always felt off. Not chaotic, not explosive, just wrong in a way you couldn't name. Maybe it was how the room changed when she entered. Laughter dimming, shoulders tightening, everyone adjusting themselves like the world needed to make space for her moods. Maybe it was the guilt you carried for wanting things children are supposed to want: rest, softness, attention, the freedom to be imperfect. Or the way you learned to read her emotions with the accuracy of survival. Every sigh a warning, every silence a threat. You didn't realize it then, but you were already shrinking yourself, already becoming the emotional adult in a home where the real adult couldn't handle her own feelings. And from that silence, a painful belief took root. If I want peace, I must earn it. If I want love, I must deserve it. From the outside, everything looked normal. But inside, you were living the first pattern in the 3 types of mother-daughter dynamics that shape every child of a narcissistic mother. A childhood where safety depended on staying small. Behind every narcissistic mother is a wound she never learned to name, a deep, aching fear that she is not enough unless someone else reflects her worth back to her. Long before she became a parent, she carried a shame core so heavy that the only way to survive it was to build a perfect image around herself. Motherhood didn't heal that wound, it magnified it. A daughter became more than a child, she became a mirror, and mirrors must be controlled. To the narcissistic mother, a daughter with her own ideas, boundaries, or identity is not a person to support. She's a threat, an unpredictable reflection that could expose the mother's insecurity. So the mother clings. She manages, corrects, criticizes, shapes, and reshapes, not out of love, but out of fear that her carefully constructed self could collapse. This is the painful paradox. She doesn't see her daughter as separate. She sees her as a shield against her own emptiness, an emotional extension she must never lose control of. For many daughters of narcissistic mothers, childhood didn't begin with exploration, it began with erasure. Before they even knew who they were, someone was already telling them who they should be. Nullification was often the first lesson. Every preference, every interest, every spark of individuality was dismissed as silly, dramatic, or not good enough. If the daughter excelled, the mother took the credit. If she struggled, the mother blamed the flaw she insisted was already there. Over time, achievements didn't feel like accomplishments, they felt like auditions for love. Then came the power displays, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Clothes must match the mother's taste. Friends must be approved. Dreams must align with the mother's image. There was one rule: the daughter could express anything as long as it wasn't hers. Control became the currency of affection, and threaded through it all was shame conditioning, the quiet, corrosive message: you are disappointing, you are difficult, you are too much, or worse, you are nothing without me. A child's identity is supposed to form through curiosity, mistakes, experimentation. But in homes like these, identity forms around avoidance, avoiding criticism, avoiding conflict, avoiding the painful truth that love seems conditional. So the daughter adapts, she shrinks, she learns to disappear just enough to survive, not because she lacks potential, but because someone taught her that being herself was the first mistake she could ever make. Nullification doesn't just silence a child, it rewires the way she understands herself. When every choice is questioned, every feeling is dismissed, and every accomplishment is minimized, the daughter learns a dangerous equation. If nothing I do is enough, maybe I'm not enough. This is where self-worth quietly begins to collapse. She grows into someone who second-guesses everything from what she wears to what she says to whether her emotions are even valid. She apologizes before she speaks. She celebrates cautiously, waiting for the criticism she's been conditioned to expect. Even success becomes complicated. The praise feels unearned, the achievement feels accidental, joy feels suspicious. As an adult, she may overwork, overgive, overfunction not out of ambition, but out of fear. Fear of being seen as inadequate, fear of disappointing someone, fear of taking up space she was once told she didn't deserve. This is the long shadow of nullification, a life spent editing yourself down, never realizing the smallness was never yours. It was taught. A narcissistic mother doesn't just want attention, she wants ownership, and nothing threatens that ownership more than her daughter forming bonds she cannot monitor or manipulate. So isolation becomes a strategy, not an accident. It begins subtly. A friend is a bad influence. A teacher doesn't understand you. A relative is jealous of our family. Bit by bit, the daughter's world shrinks until every emotional need must pass through one gatekeeper, her mother. This enforced dependence teaches the child that closeness with anyone else is dangerous. Any attempt at independence is met with guilt, suspicion, or emotional withdrawal. The message is unmistakable. You belong to me, not to them. Then comes blaming, the second layer of isolation. Whenever tension arises, the daughter becomes the scapegoat not because she's wrong, but because blame keeps the mother's image intact. Over time, the daughter stops trusting her own memory, her own judgment, her own reality, and wrapped around it all is the shiny facade, the perfect family image projected to the outside world. Everyone sees a devoted mother. No one sees a controlled child. The daughter learns that telling the truth will only make her appear ungrateful, dramatic, or too sensitive. The result is a loneliness that doesn't feel like loneliness, it feels like normalcy. Because when you grow up in isolation, connection doesn't feel safe, it feels forbidden. To the outside world, the narcissistic mother is unforgettable, warm, generous, charming in a way that wins over teachers, neighbors, co-workers, church communities. She's the mom who brings the best snacks, volunteers first, speaks with pride about her wonderful daughter. Her performance is flawless. But behind closed doors, that same mother withholds affection, weaponizes disappointment, and demands emotional repayment for every act of kindness. The mask isn't just for show, it's her survival strategy. In American culture, where the supermom image is praised, her facade becomes even more powerful. The more admired she is publicly, the harder it is for the daughter to be believed privately. And that's the paradox. The better she looks, the more invisible her daughter becomes. Any attempt to speak up is met with disbelief. Your mom? No way, she loves you. And so the daughter learns another painful truth. The world sees the mother's mask, not the mother she comes home to. It's a flawless illusion built on one thing: control over the narrative, even at the cost of the child living inside it. A denied childhood doesn't always look like cruelty from the outside. Sometimes, it looks like a child who never caused trouble, who kept quiet, who grew up too fast. But inside that quietness is fear, fear that began long before she had words for it. For many daughters of narcissistic mothers, childhood meant constant vigilance, not knowing which version of their mother would walk through the door, not knowing which small mistake would trigger anger, withdrawal, or icy silence. The home became unpredictable, a place where safety depended on reading the emotional weather minute by minute. Then there's parentification, the hidden labor of caring for a mother who should have been caring for her child. The daughter comforts her mother's sadness, absorbs her stress, becomes her emotional anchor. In the process, she loses the right to her own needs. She becomes the adult long before she experiences childhood. And beneath it all lies emotional abandonment, the absence that hurts more than anger ever could. Birthdays forgotten, milestones ignored, tears dismissed, joy overshadowed by the mother's moods. This combination creates a wound that lingers into adulthood, a nervous system wired for danger, a heart trained to anticipate rejection, and a deep, aching belief that love is something you must earn. fast, perfectly, and without making a sound. She didn't just lose her childhood, she lost the chance to feel safe in the world. Childhood with a narcissistic mother doesn't stay in childhood. It travels with you into your relationships, your work, your self-esteem, your nervous system. It shapes who you become long before you realize you're still carrying the past. Many daughters grow into adults who overfunction in every space they enter. They become the reliable one, the fixer, the emotional caretaker roles they learned far too early. They say yes when they want to say no, apologize for existing, and measure their worth by how useful they are to others. Attachment becomes complicated. Some develop anxious attachment, fearing abandonment in every silence. Others become avoidant, trusting no one because trust never felt safe. And some live in the middle, craving connection while bracing for the moment it collapses. Romantic patterns repeat the familiar. Attraction to emotionally unavailable partners. Staying in relationships where love must be earned. Mistaking intensity for intimacy because calmness feels unfamiliar. Inside, the daughter, now adult, often battles chronic self-doubt of guilt for having needs, difficulty experiencing joy without questioning it, a nervous system wired for threat instead of rest. And yet none of this means she is broken. It means she adapted. She survived an environment that asked her to be strong before she was ever allowed to simply be a child. Healing begins not with forgiveness, not with confrontation, but with clarity the moment a daughter finally names what happened to her. Because once you name it, you're no longer fighting a ghost. You're facing a pattern. The first step is releasing the role of the good daughter, the one who kept the peace, carried the emotions, and made herself small so her mother could feel big. Letting go of that role isn't selfish, it's recovery. Next comes setting boundaries, which often feels impossible at first, not because you're weak, but because you were conditioned to believe boundaries were a betrayal. In reality, they are the beginning of a life where you exist as a separate person, not an emotional extension. Then there is the slow, quiet work of rebuilding identity, exploring what you like, what you want, what you believe without looking for approval, healing the nervous system that learned danger before it learned safety, allowing yourself to take up space without apology. And perhaps the most liberating truth of all, you don't have to earn love anymore. You are allowed to receive it. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be whole even if no one ever taught you how. Breaking the cycle isn't easy, but it is possible. And it begins with choosing yourself for the very first time. There's a moment often in adulthood, often in quiet, when a daughter finally realizes the truth she was never allowed to believe. Nothing about her was ever unworthy. Nothing about her ever needed to be smaller. She didn't grow bent because she was weak. She grew that way because someone else's wounds wrapped around her life before she had the chance to stand on her own. But just like trees shaped by storms, she can learn to straighten, to rise, to grow toward light she once thought wasn't meant for her. This is the human truth. Your mother's limitations are not your destiny. Her silence is not your voice. Her fear is not your future. You are allowed to build a life where love feels safe, where rest is not a reward but a right, where your identity isn't negotiated, it's honored. And if this story felt familiar, you're not alone. Millions of daughters are waking up to the same realization. Survival was the beginning, not the end. If this helped put words to your experience, subscribe to the channel for more healing-centered insights, and share your story in the comments. Because someone out there has been waiting to feel seen through your voice.